Ahom Mughal conflicts refer to the period between the first Mughal attack on the Ahom kingdom in 1615 and the final Battle of Itakhuli in 1682. The intervening periods saw the fluctuating fortunes of both powers and the end of the rule of Koch Hajo.It ended with the Ahom influence extended to the Manas River, which remained the western boundary of the kingdom till the advent of the British in 1826. Overview. For the beginning, the relationship between the Ahoms and the Mughals was hostile, and that was due to certain factors, such as Mughal alliance with Koch Hajo, the western enemy of the Ahoms, and secondly, the growing advance of the Mughals in northeastern frontier, which alarmed them. While the Mughals supported Lakshmanarayan, son of Narayan of Koch Hajo, the Ahom king Sukamfar entered into alliance by marrying the daughter of Lakshmanarayan's cousin Raghudeva, the son of Chilere, who became the ruler of the eastern part of the kingdom of Koch Hajo, which included the modern districts of Golpara, Barpeta, Kamrup, Barang and a part of Sonitpur. This dynastic alliance between Ahom and Koch was renewed afterwards by the next Ahom king Susengfar, who married a daughter of Raja Pariksh again. It is true that with a view to satisfy the territorial ambitions of his own nephew, Narayan allowed partition of his kingdom, but unfortunately, in spite of being pacified, Raghudeva and his successors remained all along hostile towards the Koch royal house, and this rivalry and antagonism between these two frontier states invited intervention and aggression of the two mighty neighborhood powers, the Mughals on the west and Ahoms on the east. Conflict Inception. For the time the Mughals appeared in the northeastern frontier, a state of indirect rivalry and hostility began between the Mughals and the Ahoms. After the final defeat of Parikshit, the first organized Mughal attack upon Assam was made with a view to conquer that kingdom. It was the outcome of the aggressive imperialism of the Mughals. A desire for political supremacy and territorial expansion appears to have been the guiding motives of the Mughals. Boundary disputes and the trade rivalries appear to have complicated the situation, and political issues precipitated the conflict. After the extinction of the Kamrup monarchy, the Mughals came to regard the territory east of Banardi up to Singh area as part of the conquered region, and hence asserted the political right over it. Ahoms strongly resented this claim. Moreover, the rich natural resources of the Assam Valley and the prosperous kingdom of Kamrup in Lower Brahmaputra Valley, abounding in elephants and aromatic plants, excited the cupidity of the Mughals, and they were determined to force open the door of Assam. The first organized open encounter with the Ahom kingdom was the well-deserved punishment meted out by the Ahom government to an unauthorized trader from Mughal India named Ratan Singh. His illicit trade was detected, his goods were confiscated, and he was expelled from Assam. The Mughals got the necessary pretext for war, and an imperial army was at once detached in 1615 under the command of Abu Bakr and Raja Satrajit Bhusna. The imperial army advanced towards Barnagar, the old capital of Kamrup, and next moved to Hajo, and numerous outposts were raised in the surrounding region. In November 1615, Abu Bakr suddenly fell upon Kajli, the Ahom frontier post on the southwest. After a short skirmish, the Ahoms were defeated, and leaving the war boats and the fort, they fled. Flushed with easy success, the Mughals indulged in a series of aggressive measures against the Ahoms. The Ahom king then fortified the fort of Samdara with a view to check the advance of the Mughals. Meanwhile, the Mughals had reached the confluence of the Brahmaputra and the Barali facing Samdara. After a month of inaction, the Mughals achieved a great triumph. They transported the horses across the Barali and made a violent assault on the Ahom stockade on the left bank. The Ahoms thus suffered another discomfiture. The Ahom king sent a strong detachment to the Ahom commanders at Samdara and exhorted them to fall on the enemy and fight to finish. The Ahoms gained an initial success and reoccupied the stockade at the mouth of Barali. The imperialists were taken by complete surprise and suffered heavy casualties. Thus, in spite of the initial success, the maiden attempt of the Mughals upon Assam ended in a disastrous failure. They suffered a colossal loss in men and money besides military prestige. Conflict development. After the first disastrous failure in Assam, the Mughals henceforth continued to follow a defensive and conciliatory policy in regards to the Assam state. Because of the heavy engagement in Kamrup, the Mughals henceforward were very cautious not to offend the mighty neighbor. But the Ahoms, being encouraged at the recent brilliant success, continued to pursue a hostile policy against the Mughals and proceeded to take advantage of the prevailing political confusion in Kamrup. The Assam disaster encouraged seditions and rebellions in Mughal-occupied Kamrup. The Ahoms encouraged the Kamrup rebels and thereby caused hardship to the Mughals. There was hardly any open and direct conflict between the two powers as such. In the year 1618, the Ahom king Pratap Singh installed Balanaran, the brother of Parikshit, as king of Darang and continued to help him for some time to reoccupy Kamrup. But in spite of Ahom king's material assistance, Balanaran ultimately failed to reconquer Kamrup. The Ahoms interfered in Kamrup from the third time on behalf of the hill chiefs of Danakil in 1619. The hill chiefs, being sick of Mughal subjection, made a bold attempt to seize the hill fort of Rani Hat, and they sought the help of the Ahom king. The Ahom responded to the appeal and sent a large detachment to their assistance. After hard fighting, the Mughals courted defeat and were compelled to evacuate Rani Hat, hotly pursued by the Ahoms. But the Mughals soon gathered strength and recovered Danakil in spite of the stiff resistance of the Ahoms. Thus, 3 attempts of the Ahoms at supplanting Mughal authority in Kamrup proved abortive. The Ahom king gradually withdrew from the arena of Kamrup policies, leaving Balanaran to his fate. During Shah Jahan's reign, the reign of Shah Jahan marks a new epoch in Ahom-Mughal relations. After a decade of informal hostility, circumstances paved the way for the renewal of open conflict between the two powers. Twofold factors, both political, appear to have been responsible for the conflict. The first was the asylum given by the Ahom king to the hill chiefs of Danakil, who had sought his protection against the ill treatment of the Bengal Subadar Kashim Khan Chishti. The second factor, which precipitated the crisis, was the wickedness and treachery of Satrajit, the Thanadar of Pandu, who made a common cause with Balanaran and instigated him to take advantage of the change of governor in Bengal in order to attack Kamrup. The invasion of Kamrup by Balanaran compelled the Mughals to resort to arms. The Ahoms gained initial success. A fierce encounter took place, which ultimately ended with the total discomfiture of the imperialists. Thereupon, the Mughal fell back to the frontier post of Hafo. The Ahoms laid siege to Hafo and fighting continued for some time. At last, both sides having been thoroughly worn out, the fighting was stopped for some time. The Ahom-Mughal conflict started afresh towards the end of December 1636. The Mughals entered Kamrup proper. The decisive defeat inflicted by the imperialists on Balanaran and the Ahoms in November 1637 turned the tide of fortune in favor of imperialists. The whole of Kamrup was cleared and re-annexed to the Pan-Mufalia. The third round of conflict began soon. The imperialists advanced up the Brahmaputra and halted opposite to Samdara in October 1638. Severe fighting ensued. Although the faint-hearted Ahom admiral retired from battlefield, the garrison in the fort of Samdara offered such a gallant defense that the Mughals had to give up the contest with great loss of men and materials. Both sides became eager for peace, hence a treaty of peace was signed in February 1639. According to the Treaty of Asura Ali between the Ahom General Momai Tamuli Borbrua and the Mughal commander Alayar Khan, Western Assam commencing from Guwahati passed into the hands of Mughals. The Ahom king, for the first time, acknowledged formally the Mughal overlordship in Kamrup. The Mughals acknowledged the independence of the Ahom king and gave up all pretensions to the territories east of Banadi on the north and Kelang on the south, and the Ahom king agreed not to interfere in Kamrup. Besides, trade and commercial intercourses were resumed. The Ahom-Mughal relation following the Peace of 1639 was far from satisfactory. However, it would be wrong to assume that both sides strictly honored the peace treaty of 1639. The keynote of the political history of this period is the endless criminations and recriminations of the Mughals and the Assamese on various rounds, such as Kheda operations, trade and commercial intercourse, boundary disputes, extradition of political offenders, and violation of personal liberty and privileges of the subject people. On these issues, frictions continued mounting without, of course, any open armed clash. It was really a period of armed peace between the Mughals and the Ahoms. In 1648, the Mughal Fauj of Guwahati sent a message of congratulations to the Ahom king Jayadwaj on his succession, but Jayadwaj Singh, taking advantage of the Emperor Shah Jahan's illness and the War of Succession, expelled the Mughals from Guwahati and chased them down beyond the river Manaha. He also devastated the territory near Dhaka and carried off to Assam a large number of Mughal subjects as captives. During Aurangzeb's reign, Aurangzeb, after ascending on the throne of Delhi, ordered Mir Jumla to invade Cooch Behar and Assam and re-establish Mughal prestige in eastern India. After having occupied Koch Behar had also declared its independence. Mir Jumla entered Assam in the beginning of 1662. He easily repulsed the feeble resistance offered by the Assamese at the garrisons between Manaha and Guwahati. He occupied one garrison after another, and Pandu's Guwahati and Kajli fell into the hands of the Mughals practically unopposed. The easy success of Mir Jumla was due to dissatisfaction in the Assam camp. The leading commanders and the officers were the exclusive monopolies of the Ahom, but King Jayadwaj Singh had appointed Akasthar as Viceroy of Western Assam and Commander-in-Chief of the Ahom army dispatch against Mir Jumla, leading to resentment among the ranks. This officer was Manthia Barali Barua of Bejdaloi family. He was also appointed Parbeship-Hukan. This appointment caused bitter resentment among the hereditary Ahom nobles and commanders, and the resistance which they offered to the invaders was neither worthy of the efficient military organization of the Ahoms nor of the reputation which they acquired by repeated success in their enterprises against foreigners. And Mir Jumla's march into Assam was an uninterrupted series of triumphant victories, though the real secret of his success, namely, defection in Ahom camp, which has not been touched upon by any historian of the expedition. The Ahoms, however, recovered the senses when the hostile force reached the neighborhood of Kaliabor. They concentrated their defense at Simalugar and Samdara, In February 1662, Mir Jumla laid siege to Simalugar, and after severe hand-to-hand fight, the Ahoms abandoned the fort and took to flight. The Ahom forces at Samdara on the opposite bank, being unnerved by the fall of Simalugar, left the charge without any opposition worth the name. After this brilliant success, Mir Jumla entered the Ahom capital Gargaon on the 17th of March 1662. The Ahom king Jayadwaj took shelter in the eastern hills, abandoning his capital and all his treasures. Immense spoils fell into the hands of the Mughal Empire: 82 elephants, about 300,000 coins in gold and silver, 675 big guns, about 4,750 morns of gunpowder in boxes, 7,828 shields, 1,000 odd ships, and 173 stores of rice. But Mir Jumla conquered only the soil of Ahom capital and neither the king nor the country. The rainy season was fast approaching, and so Mir Jumla halted there and made necessary arrangements for holding the conquered land. Communications with the imperial fleet at Lucknow as well as with Dhaka were arranged, but the torrential rain and violence of the rivers caused immense hardship to the Mughals, and the communication with the Mughal fleet in Lucknow and with Dhaka became completely disrupted. The Ahoms took the fullest advantage of the unspeakable hardship of the Mughals. With the progress of monsoon, the Ahoms easily recovered all the country east of Lucknow. Only Gargaon and Mathurapur remained in the possession of Mughals. The Ahoms were not slow to take advantages of the miserable plight of the Mughals. The Ahom king came out of his refuge and ordered his commanders to expel the invaders from his kingdom. A serious epidemic broke out in the Mughal camp at Mathurapur, which took away the lives of hundreds of Mughal soldiers. There was no suitable diet or comfort in the Mughal camp. At last life became unbearable at Mathurapur, and hence the Mughals abandoned it. By the end of September the worst was over. The rains decreased, and flood went down, roads reappeared and communications became easier. The contact with the Mughal fleet at Lucknow was restored, which cheered the long-suffering Mughal garrison. The Mughal army under Mir Jumla joined the fleet at Devalgaon. The Ahom king Jayadwaj Singh took refuge in Hill again. But in December, Mir Jumla fell seriously ill and the soldiers refused to advance any further. Meanwhile, the Ahom king became extremely anxious for peace. At last a treaty was concluded at Gilajuriyat in January 1663, according to which the Ahoms ceded western Assam to the Mughals, promised a war indemnity of 3 lakhs of rupees and 90 elephants. Besides, the king had to deliver his only child and daughter Ramani Gabbar, as well as his niece, the daughter of the Tipam Raja, to the harem of the Mughal emperor. Thus, according to the treaty, Jayadwaj Singh transferred Kamrup to the possession of the Mughals and promised to pay a heavy war indemnity. The question of prompt payment of war indemnity of elephants and cash became a source of friction between the Ahoms and the Mughals. The first installment was paid by Jayadwaj promptly. But as soon as Mir Jumla withdrew from Assam, the Ahoms began to default. Jayadwaj Singh's successor Chakradwaj Singh was against any payment at all on principle. He shouted out from his throne, "Death is preferable to a life of subordination to foreigners." In 1665 the king summoned an assembly of his ministers and nobles and ordered them to adopt measures for expelling the Mughals from western Assam, adding, "My ancestors were never subordinate to any other people, and I for myself cannot remain under the vassalage of any foreign power. I am a descendant of the heavenly king, and how can I pay tribute to the wretched foreigners?" A large portion of the war indemnity still remained undelivered, for which the Ahom king had to receive threatening letters from Saeed Firoz Khan, the new Faujdar at Guwahati. On receiving Feroz Khan's letter, the Ahom king made up his mind to fight. On Thursday, Badr 3, 1589 Sakanir, about August 20, 1667, the Ahom army started from the capital and sailed down the Brahmaputra in 2 divisions. They encamped at Kaliabor, the viceregal headquarters, from where they conducted the war operations against the Mughals. Sayyid Feroz Khan, the imperial governor of Guwahati, and his army were not prepared for such an eventuality, with the result that the Ahoms gained a series of victories over the enemy. The Ahom army on the south bank was successful in the fighting. The chief objective was the capture of Itakhuli, which is a small hill on the south bank of the Brahmaputra at Guwahati. On the 2nd of November 1667, Itakhuli and the contiguous garrison of Guwahati fell into the hands of the Ahoms. Enemy was chased down to the mouth of the Manaha River, the old boundary between Assam and Mughal India. The Ahom also succeeded in bringing back the Assamese subjects who had previously been taken as captives by the Mughals during the expedition of Mir Jumla. Thus, within the short span of 2 months, the Ahoms succeeded the lost possession, and along with it the lost prestige and glory. This was due to the determination and courage of Ahom King Chakradwaj Singh. On receiving the news of victory, the king cried out, "It is now that I can eat my morsel of food with ease and pleasure." The success of the Ahoms in recovering possession of Guwahati and western Assam forms a momentous chapter in the history of the conflicts with the Mughals. Ram Singh's campaign in December 1667, the Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb received intelligence of the capture of Guwahati by the Ahoms, and he at once resolved to dispatch a strong army to re-establish Mughal prestige in northeast frontier. He commissioned Raja Ram Singh I Vambat, son of the distinguished General Mirza Raja Jai Singh I, to lead an invasion of Assam. He was accompanied by Rashid Khan, the ex-Faujdar of Guwahati. Ram Singh reached the frontier garrison of Rangamati in February 1669. On Ram Singh's arrival at Rangamati, the Ahom commanders stationed at Manaha attempted to oppose the advance of the enemy. There were few skirmishes, but the Assamese could not attain any success. The Assamese were not prepared for such an eventuality, and they left the frontier garrisons and sailed down to Guwahati. Also, the Ahoms had not quite completed the preparations for resisting Ram Singh I's advance. Lakat Borfukin, the commander-in-chief of the Ahom camp, had realized fully that postponement of the open encounter would enable him to bring his preparations to perfection in the light of the enemy's superior strength. Lakat Borfukin sent the following message to Ram Singh: "Tell Raja Ram Singh that we want to know why he has come to our country." Feroz Khan, ex-Faujdar of Guwahati, now a prisoner of the Ahoms, was released, and Lakat Borfukin sent him to Raja Ram Singh with the above message. Ram Singh demanded through Feroz Khan the restoration of the limit fixed in 1639 between Aliya Khan and Momitamuli Borbrua. By the time he received this reply, Borfukin would rather fight than yield an inch of the territory which Providence had given to his master. The result was that in the first 2 battles of the campaign were fought near Tezpur in the beginning of April 1669. The Ahoms were worsted on both occasions, but they gained a naval battle, and soon afterwards repulsed the Mohammedans, and Ram Singh was compelled to retire to Hathor, where he quarreled with Rashid Khan. Eventually Ram Singh cut his tent ropes and ordered him out of the camp. Soon afterwards the Mohammedans were again defeated near Surkuchi, both on land and water. At this juncture, Ram Singh challenged Chakradwaj Singh to single combat, and undertook, if he were defeated, to return with the army to Bengal. The Ahom king declined the invitation, and ordered his generals to renew their attack.
They did so, and won another double engagement near Sessa. They followed up this success by taking the fort at Itakhuli, but soon afterwards Ram Singh attacked the Ahom army and routed it, inflicting heavy loss. The Bafukan hurried up with reinforcements, but his flank was tired and he was obliged to retreat with loss of his ships. Raja Ram Singh now opened negotiations for peace. The Ahoms were also tired of the war, and hostilities were suspended for a time. Sporadic engagement accompanied by proposals of peace continued during 1669 and 1670. From October 1669 to March 1670, Ram Singh withdrew himself from the fight. In the meantime, Ram Singh sent a letter to the Bafukan inviting the King of Assam to fight a duel in the presence of the two hostile armies. But the Ahom king dismissed the insolent challenge by simply saying, "Ram Singh is a mere servant and he has no umbrella over his head, so I do not like to fight a duel with such a man." Chakravarti Singh could not hold his patience any longer. In the meantime, the Mughal had then concentrated their army near Aliboy Hill in the vicinity of Dalibari. A terrible contest ensued on the plains to the south of the Aliboy Hill. The Ahoms were badly defeated in that battle. The massacre at Aliboy had terribly upset Lakat Bafukan. Though the Aliboy massacre meant a serious loss to the Ahoms, but it did not confer upon the enemy any decisive advantage. But Ram Singh repeated his demands for the evacuation of Guwahati and reversion to the status quo ante of the year 1639. The Bafukan remained firm in the position he had previously maintained. So war was inevitable between the two parties. But when the war was taking a more critical turn, Chakravarti Singh, the king of Assam, died in April 1670. He was succeeded by his brother, Udayaditya Singh. Although the negotiations with the Mughals continued, but Ram Singh, suspecting the sincerity of the Bafukan, returned to attack. Udayaditya renewed the war and ordered the Bafukan to march with 20,000 men from Samdara to Sarayat. The Ahoms were successful on land, but the navy was forced to retreat. Bafukan arrived with more ships and Mughal army was beaten, and the Ahoms also gained a second land victory. The Mughals could not stand the dash and fury of the Assamese onset. The Assamese were fighting for the life and liberty, and the Mughals for the mere luxury of triumphant territorial expansion. The Bafukan intended to chase them further still, but he was dissuaded by Keynote and Adeloy. The combat came to an end, and it was a decisive victory for the Assamese. This battle is known in history as the Battle of Sarayat. Ram Singh, weakened by the repeated losses, retreated to Rangamati in March 1671. Hadira opposite to Golpura became the Ahom frontier outpost. Thus Mughals were evicted from Kamrup. Strong fortifications were constructed at Guwahati. Thus Ahoms remained in undisturbed possession of the territories till 1679 AD. Post-conflict, in 1679, during the reign of Sudwafara Parvatiya Raja Lalak Bafukan, the Ahom viceroy of Guwahati, and his brother entered into a conspiracy and invited the Nawab of Bengal to take possession of the fort at Sarayat. Accordingly, in March Lalak Sola made over Guwahati to the Mughals in return for a promised reward of 4 lakhs of rupees and an assurance to support Laluk's candidature from the throne of Assam. In 1681, Gadapani was formally installed as sovereign of Assam under the name Gadadhar Singh. His first act after taking reign was the dispatch of an army against Mansa Khan, which succeeded in recovering Guwahati in August 1682 after a decisive encounter at Itakhuli. The Ahoms expelled Mansa Khan from Guwahati and re-established the possession over the territories extending
up to the river Manaha. Thus, Manaha became once more the western boundary of Assam, and it remained as such till the occupation of the western Assam by the British in the year 1824. List of conflicts.